This isn't a European city in Italy, France, or Germany. It's a marvel nestled in Dongguan, southern China. About 40 kilometers away from the company's headquarters in Shenzhen, and barely a decade old. But it's not even a city, it's a cutting-edge research base belonging to the telecoms giant Huawei. The design echoes architecture from 12 cities around Europe, and the sprawling 127-hectare campus is seamlessly connected by a 7.8-kilometer commuter rail system, ensuring effortless mobility for the 25,000 people working there. This might just be the world's most interesting and captivating office building, so join us in this video as we walk you through its impressive details. Welcome back to PST Megaprojects. This vast complex is officially called the Huawei Ox Horn Campus, and it's essentially a small city within a city for thousands of Huawei employees, mostly researchers, to work at. Construction on the Ox Horn campus started in 2015 and ended in 2022, with a total cost of $1.5 billion, or around 10 billion yuan. It covers 1.4 million square meters, and is divided into 12 sections inspired by cities or regions in Europe, as well as replicas of famous European buildings. These cities are Paris, Oxford, Bruges, Burgundy, Fribourg, Luxembourg, Windermere, Granada, Verona, Český Krumlov, Heidelberg, and Bologna. Employees in the Ox Horn campus have 50% more office space than employees in the Shenzhen headquarters. But perhaps the most impressive thing about the Ox Horn campus is its reinterpretation of Germany's Heidelberg Castle, which stands at the heart of the campus. The old bridge in Heidelberg, with its distinctive gateway at one end, has also been rebuilt by Huawei. There's also the lake below, and the meadows and the forests around it, which are the Windermere section, named after England's largest lake. There's also a replica of the iconic Palace of Versailles in France. And what makes these replicas so impressive is that while they look historic, they are brand new, and in many cases, filled with high-tech equipment and research facilities. What's even more impressive is that Huawei built Ox Horn using modern construction methods and technologies without compromising the historical styles it sought to evoke, even with the simplest things like lampposts. Inside the Versailles replica, there's a replica of the famous reading room at France's National Library, complete with a colossal stained glass ceiling. Not only that, in the Bruges section, Huawei even replicated Bruges' famous belfry. Huawei also rebuilt large parts of Verona in northern Italy, including the Great Castelvecchio on the banks of the Adige, built during the reign of the Scaliger dynasty in Verona. There's also a replica of the Torre dei Lamberti, the tallest building in Verona, constructed between the 12th and 15th centuries. Even the building adjacent to the Torre dei Lamberti, the Palazzo della Ragione, has been rebuilt by Huawei, along with the so-called Staircase of Reason in its courtyard. Huawei also built a replica of Verona's main square, the Piazza Erbe, with the Baroque Palazzo Maffei at its head. And of course, Huawei made sure to include the distinctive red and white stripes of brick and tufa used in medieval Veronese architecture. The company also built its own version of the towers of Český Krumlov in the Czech Republic, and in the section inspired by Burgundy, there is a replica of Fontenay Abbey, a Romanesque architecture wonder, along with the walls and towers of the town of Semur-en-Auxois. There's also a replica of Budapest's Freedom Bridge, and in the section inspired by Fribourg, Switzerland, there is a version of the Berntor Clock Tower in Merton. Even though Huawei's versions are less lavish and slightly less detailed than the originals, they still look very similar to the originals, so you can't say that they did a bad job trying to replicate them. The Ox Horn campus is an extremely walkable workplace, as it has streets, alleys, and squares, just like a real city. So rather than using elevators, employees walk to their offices, surrounded by beautiful European architecture and nature. Not only that, but all the buildings are only a few stories tall, so employees can take the stairs to their offices without having to use an elevator. This makes this campus one of the most novel approaches to office design, and some might even argue that it looks more human than most modern office buildings built in the brutalist architecture style. There are more than 100 buildings at Ox Horn, and it seems like a lot of effort was put into choosing which European buildings to replicate, as there are famous buildings, but still nowhere near as iconic as a structure like the Eiffel Tower. Since Huawei wanted Ox Horn to become like a car-free town, an electric tram system nearly 8 kilometers in length was built to link the whole campus, and each of the 12 towns has at least one tram station. The trams themselves were modeled on the carriages of Switzerland's iconic Jungfrau Railway, and the entire campus takes about 20 minutes in the tram to fully explore. Aside from tram stations, each section also has its own cafes, restaurants, shops, gyms, and other amenities, including rather grand dining halls, as there is one in the Bologna section. This project isn't something that you would associate with a company like Huawei, known for being the world's largest manufacturer of telecommunications equipment, so it has received some criticism in China. Chinese people didn't like the fact that Huawei replicated the styles of European buildings, rather than just base its R&D headquarters on traditional Chinese architecture. Meanwhile, critics abroad have called the project kitsch and fake. Some even said that this is Huawei's attempt to appear friendlier to the West, especially after the company invited reporters from Western media, like Yahoo Finance, to tour the campus as Huawei was caught up in the middle of the US-China trade war that former US President Donald Trump started over suspicions that Chinese companies were stealing American technologies to fuel their development. This was seen as Huawei saying, "Look, I have nothing to hide." But the US government doesn't believe that. According to the former President Trump administration, Huawei began a concerted effort to steal information about a robot that T-Mobile used to test mobile phones, while Trump himself called the Chinese company very dangerous during his time as president. Employees working on the campus shared their opinions on the trade war with the reporters. Some said they were worried, while others said they weren't worried at all, and that the US government will soon realize that the sanctions it placed on Huawei were unreasonable. Meanwhile, researchers and engineers felt limited because they had to develop technology with the thought of how the US government would react to it in mind, and they thought this was killing innovation and competition. When asked about it, Huawei CEO Ren Zhengfei said that he didn't expect the US to put Huawei on a blacklist, and that really hurt the company. But he also said that Huawei immediately started working out its own solutions to reduce its dependency on American products and technology. He believes Huawei will be able to do this, since the company invests more than 15% of its revenue on R&D each year. He also dismissed any speculations about his connection to the Chinese military, saying that he was, indeed, a military veteran, but now he runs this business, and Chinese veterans should be able to work without people saying they were backed by the military, just like how American veterans work without any criticism. In my opinion, this criticism is unwarranted. There should be nothing wrong with building structures similar to famous ones from the past that we all love. And besides, not everybody can travel around the world, so why shouldn't architecture do the traveling instead? Also, the majority of the world's offices are based in identical, extremely boring skyscrapers. So Huawei's campus, which is inspired by historical cities, is actually a bold and imaginative decision. It also proves the people who say that older architectural styles are no longer practical, affordable, or possible wrong. Since Huawei borrowed from European architecture for the Ox Horn Campus, could Europe borrow something in return? And if companies around the world manage to replicate this idea for their office buildings and headquarters, would people be happier if they worked in places like this? We can't really give a definitive answer to these questions, but at the very least, the Ox Horn Campus shows that not all offices have to look the same, and that brutalistic boxes are not our only option. Well, that is everything for now. What do you think? Would you want to work in an office like this or not? Please let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave a like for this video. Your support helps us continue our work. Thanks again for your support, and I will see you in the next one.